The Tomtit and the Bear. One summer day, as the wolf and the bear were walking together in a wood, they heard a bird singing most delightfully. "Brother," said the bear, "what can that bird be that is singing so sweetly?" "Oh," said the wolf, "that is His Majesty the King of the birds. We must take care to show him all possible respect. Now I should tell you that this bird was, after all, no other than the tomtit. No other than the tomtit. If that is the case," said the bear, "I should like to see the royal palace. So pray come along and show it to me." Gently, my friend," said the wolf. "We cannot see it just yet. We must wait till the queen comes home." Soon afterwards the queen came with food in her beak, and she and the king began to feed their young ones. "Now for it," said the bear, and was about to follow them to see what was to be seen. "Stop a little, Master Broom," said the wolf. "We must wait now till their majesties are gone again." So they marked the hole where they had seen the nest and went away. But the bear, being very eager to see the royal palace, soon came back again. And peeking into the nest, saw 5 or 6 young birds lying at the bottom of it. "What nonsense!" said Bruin. "This is not a royal palace. I never saw such a filthy place in my life, and you are no royal children, you little base-born brats." As soon as the young tomtits heard this, they were very angry, and screamed out, "We are not base-born, you stupid bear. Our father and mother are honest, good sort of people, and depend upon it, you shall suffer for your insolence." At this, the wolf and the bear grew frightened and ran away to their dens. But the young tomtits kept crying and screaming, and when their father and mother came home and offered them food, they all said, "We will not touch a bit, no, not a leg of a fly, though we should die of hunger till that rascal Bruin has been punished for calling us base-born brats." "Make yourselves easy, my darlings," said the old king. "You may be sure he shall have meat with his deserts." Deserts. So he went out and stood before the bear's den, and cried out with a loud voice, "Bruin the bear, thou hast shamefully insulted our lawful children. We therefore hereby declare bloody and cruel war against thee and thine, which shall never cease until thou hast been punished, as thou so richly deservest." Now when the bear heard this, he called together the ox, the ass, the stag, and all the beasts of the earth, in order to consult about the means of his defense. And Tomtit also enlisted on his side all the birds of the air, both great and small, and a very large army of hornets, gnats, bees, and flies, and other insects. As the time approached when the war was to begin, the tomtit sent out spies to see who was the commander-in-chief of the enemy forces, and the gnat, who was by far the cleverest spy of them all, flew backwards and forwards in the wood where the enemy's troops were, and at last hid himself under a leaf on a tree close by, which the orders of the day were given out. And the bear, who was standing so near the tree that the gnat could hear all he said, called to the fox and said, "Reynard, you are the cleverest of all the beasts. Therefore you shall be our general and lead us to battle. But we must first agree upon some signal by which we may know what you want us to do." "Behold," said the fox, "I have a fine, long, bushy tail, which is very like a plume of red feathers, and gives me a very warlike air. Now remember, when you see me rise up my tail, you must be sure that the battle is won, and you have then nothing to do but to rush down upon the enemy with all your force. On the other hand, if I drop my tail, the day is lost, and you must run away as fast as you can." Now when the gnat had heard all this, he flew back to Tom Tit and told him everything that had passed. At length the day came when the battle was to be fought, and as soon as it was light, behold, the army of beasts came rushing forward with such a fearful sound that the earth shook, and His Majesty the Tom Tit with his troops came flying along in warlike array, flapping and fluttering and heating the air so that it was quite frightful to hear. And both armies set themselves in order of the battlefield order of battle upon the field. Now the Tom Tit gave orders to a troop of hornets that at first onset they should march straight towards Captain Reynard, and fixing themselves about his tail, should sting him with all their might and main. The hornets did as they were told, and when Reynard felt the first sting, he started aside and shook one of his legs, but still held up his tail with a wonderful bravery. At the second sting, he was forced to drop his tail for a moment, but when the third hornet had fixed itself, he could bear it no longer, but clapped his tail between his legs and scampered away as fast as he could. As soon as the beasts saw this, they thought of course all was lost, and scored across the country in the greatest dismay, leaving the birds master of the field. And now the king and queen flew back in triumph to their children and said, "Now, children, eat, drink, and be merry, for the victory is ours." But the young bird said, "No, not till Grimm has humbly begged our pardon for calling us base-born." So the king flew back to the bear's den and cried out, "Thou villain bear, come forthwith to my abode, and humbly beseech my children to forgive the insult thou hast offered them. For if thou wilt not do this, every bone in thy wretched body shall be broken into pieces." Then the bear was forced to crawl out of his den very sulkily and do what the king bade him. After that, the young birds sat down together and ate and drank and made merry till midnight. The 12 Dancing Princesses. There was a king who had 12 beautiful daughters. They slept in 12 beds, all in one room, and when they went to bed, the doors were shut and locked up. But every morning their shoes were found to be quite worn through, as if they had been dancing in all night, and yet nobody could find out how it happened and where they had been. Then the king made it known to all the land that if any person could discover the secret and find out where it was that the princesses danced in the night, he should have the one he liked best for his wife, and she should be king after his death. But whosoever tried and did not succeed after 3 days and nights should be put to death. A king's son soon came. He was well entertained, and in the evening was taken to the chamber next to the one where the princesses lay in their 12 beds. There he was to sit and watch where they went to dance, and in order that nothing might pass without his hearing, the door of his chambers was left open. But the king's son soon fell asleep, and when he woke in the morning he found that the princesses had all been dancing, for the soles of their shoes were full of holes. The same thing happened the second and the third night, so the king ordered his head to be cut off. After him came several others, but they all had the same luck, and all lost their lives in the same manner. Now it chanced that an old soldier who had been wounded in battle and could fight no longer passed through the country where his king reigned. And as he was traveling through the wood, he met an old woman who asked him where he was going. "I hardly know where I'm going, or what I had better do," said the soldier. "But I think I should like very well to find out where it is that the princesses dance, and then, in time, I might be king."
"Well," said the old dame, "that is no very hard task. Only take care not to drink any of the wine which one of the princesses will bring you in the evening, and as soon as she leaves, you pretend to be fast asleep."
Then she gave him a cloak and said,
"As soon as you put that on, you will become invisible, and you will then be able to follow the princesses wherever they go."
When the soldier heard all this good counsel, he determined to try his luck. So he went to the king and said he was willing to undertake the task. He was as well received as the others had been, and the king ordered fine royal robes to be given him, and when the evening came, he was led to the outer chamber. Just as he was going to lie down, the eldest princess brought him a cup of wine, but the soldier threw it all away secretly, taking care not to drink a drop. Then he laid himself down on his bed, and a little while began to snore very loud, as if he were fast asleep. The 12 princesses heard this. They laughed heartily, and the eldest said, "This fellow might have done a wiser thing than lose his life in this way." Then they rose up and opened their drawers and boxes and took out all their fine clothes and dressed themselves at the glass and skipped about as if they were eager to begin dancing. But the youngest said,
"I don't know how it is. While you are so happy, I feel very uneasy. I am sure some mischance will befall us."
"You simpleton,"
said the eldest. "You are always afraid. Have you forgotten how many kings' sons have already watched us in vain? And as for this soldier, even if I had not given him his sleeping draught, he would have slept soundly enough." When they were all ready, they went and looked at the soldier, but he snored on, and did not stir hand or foot. So they thought they were quite safe, and the eldest went up to her own bed and clapped her hands, and the bed sunk into the floor, and a trap door flew open. The soldier saw them going down through the trap door, one after another, the eldest leading the way, and thinking he had no time to lose, he jumped up, put on the cloak which the old woman had given him, and followed them. But in the middle of the stairs he trod on the gown of the youngest princess, and cried out to her sisters, "All is not right! Someone took hold of my gown!" "You silly creature," said the eldest, "it is nothing but a nail in the wall." Then down they all went. At the bottom they found themselves in the most delightful grove of trees, and the leaves were all silver and glittered and sparkled beautifully. The soldier wished to take away some token of the place, so he broke off a little branch, and there came a loud noise from the tree. The youngest daughter said again, "I am sure all of this is not right. Did you hear that noise? That never happened before." But the eldest said, It is only our princes who are shouting for joy at our approach." Then they came to another grove of trees where all the leaves were of gold, and afterwards to the third, where the leaves were all glittering diamonds. And the soldier broke a branch from each, and every time there was a loud noise, which made the youngest princess tremble in fear. But the eldest still said it was only princes who were crying for joy. So they went on till they came to a great lake, and at the side of the lake there lay 12 little boats with 12 handsome princes in them, who seemed to be waiting there for the princesses. One of the princesses went into each boat, and the soldier stepped into the same boat with the youngest. As they were rowing over the lake, the prince who was in the boat with the youngest princess and the soldier said, "I do not know why it is, but though I am rowing with all my might, we do not get on so fast as usual, and I am quite tired. The boat seems very heavy today." "It is only the heat of the weather," said the princess. "I feel it very warm too." On the other side of the lake stood a fine illuminated castle, from which came the merry music of horns and trumpets. There they all landed and went into the castle, and each prince danced with his princess, and the soldier, who was all the time invisible, danced with them too. And when any of the princesses had a cup of wine set by her, he drank it all up, so that when she put the cup to her mouth, it was empty. At this, too, the youngest sister was terribly frightened, but the eldest always silenced her. They danced on till
3 o'clock in the morning, and then all their shoes were worn out, so that they were obliged to leave. The princes rowed them back over the lake, but this time the soldier placed himself in the boat with the eldest princess. And on the opposite shore, they took leave of each other. There we go. The princesses promised to come again the next night. When they came to the stairs, the soldier ran on before the princesses and laid himself down. As the 12 princesses slowly came up, very much tired, they heard him snoring in his bed. So they said, "Now all is quite safe." Then they undressed themselves, put away their fine clothes, pulled off their shoes, and went to bed. In the morning, the soldier said nothing about what happened, but determined to see more of this strange adventure, and went again the second and third night, and everything happened just as before. The princesses danced each time till their shoes were worn to pieces, and then returned home. However, on the third night, the soldier carried away one of the golden cups as a token of where he had been. As soon as the time came when he was to declare the secret, he was taken before the king with the 3 branches and the golden cup. And the 12 princesses stood listening behind the door to hear what he would say. And when the king asked him, "Where do my 12 daughters dance at night?" he answered, "With 12 princes in a castle underground." And then he told the king all that had happened, and showed him the 3 branches and the golden cup, which he had brought with him. Then the king called for the princesses, and asked him whether what the soldier had said was true. And when they saw that they were discovered, and that it was no use to deny what had happened, they all confessed it. They confessed it all. And the king asked the soldier which of them he would choose to have for his wife, and he answered, "I am not very young, so I will have the eldest." And they were married that very day, and the soldier was chosen to be the king's heir. Sleeping Beauty. Once upon a time, there lived a king and a queen who had no children, and this they lamented very much. But one day, as the queen was walking by the side of the river, a little fish lifted its head out of the water and said, "Your wish shall be fulfilled, and you shall have a daughter." What the little fish had foretold soon came to pass, and the queen had a little girl that was so very beautiful that the king could not cease looking on it for joy, and was determined to hold a great feast. So he invited not only his relations, friends, and neighbors, but also all the fairies, that they might be kind and good to his little daughter. Now there were 13 fairies in his kingdom, and he had only 12 golden dishes for them to eat out of, so that he was obliged to leave one of the fairies without an invitation. The rest came, and after the feast was over, they all gave their best gifts to the little princess. One gave her virtue, another beauty, others another riches, and so on till she had all that was excellent in the world. When 11 had done blessing her, the 13th, who had not been invited, was very angry on that account, came in, and determined to take her revenge. So she cried out, "The king's daughter shall,
in her 15th year, be wounded by a spindle and fall down dead. Then the 12th, who had not yet given her gift, came forward and said that the bad wish must be fulfilled, but that she could soften it, and that the king's daughter should not die, but fall asleep for 100 years. The king hoped to save his dear child from the threatened evil, and ordered that all spindles in the kingdom should be brought up and destroyed. All the fairies' gifts were in the meantime fulfilled, for the princess was so beautiful and well behaved and amiable and wise that everyone who knew her loved her. Now it happened that on the very day she was 15 years old, the king and queen were not at home, and she was left alone in the palace. So she roved about by herself and looked at all the rooms and chambers till at last she came to an old tower, to which there was a narrow staircase ending with a little door. In the door there was a golden key, and when she turned it, the door sprang open, and there sat an old lady spinning away very busily. "Why, how now, good mother?" said the princess. "What are you doing there?" "Spinning," said the old lady, and nodded her head. "How pretty! How prettily that little thing turns round," said the princess, and took the spindle and began to spin. But scarcely had she touched it before the prophecy was fulfilled, and she fell down lifeless on the ground. However, she was not dead, but had only fallen into a deep sleep, and the king and queen, who had just then came home, and all their court fell asleep too, and the horses slept in the stables, and the dogs in the court, and the pigeons on the housetop, and the flies on the wall. Even the fire on the hearth left off blazing and went to sleep. And the meat that was roasting stood still, and the cook, who was at the moment pulling the chicken boy by the hair to give him a box on the ear for something he had done amiss, I should have brought my water up here. Oh well. Let him go, and both fell asleep, and soon everything stood still and slept soundly. A large hedge of thorns soon grew around the palace, and every year it became higher and thicker, till at last the whole palace was surrounded and hid, so that not even the roof of the chimney could be seen. But there went a report through all the land of the beautiful sleeping Rosebud, for so was the king's daughter called. Excuse me. So that from time to time several kings' sons came and tried to break through the thicket into the palace. This they could never do, for the thorns in the bushes lay hold of them as it were with hands, and there they stuck fast and died miserably. After many, many years, there came a king's son into that land. And an old man told him the story of the thicket of thorns, and how a beautiful palace stood behind